creating the portraits of all the people on the streets, there are many things to keep in mind. The hair, the eyes, the lips, all these things were very important to get the features just right to make the people look like who they are. Equally as important, of course, is the contours of the face. I'm going to zoom in here on my daughter Erica's face right there. And we see that there are all these features. There's the nose, the types of eyebrows, and so on. But things like cheeks and the little tones underneath her eyes, these are very crucial to get the full character of the face. So let's see how some of these features were created. I have here the file of just her face. This is the file where her face was created. I'm going to go in here and just look at these little cheek areas. When we look at the overall layers, see at the top there's the composite layer. That's the one where I bring it into the main file where I add the hair and the other features. But we're going to go down here to the head. And we're going to look at just the head. And we see that there's a lot of dodging and burning that went into that. What we're going to do is we're going to create a layer on top of that. And I have the color selected for the skin tones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that particular path. And you see all the paths there for the different shapes. I'm going to select that path, which is the overall shape of the head, and I'm going to fill it in that layer. So there, now we see that it just flattened up because all the features have gone away because they were created in that one layer. So let's go see how those were then generated. There's things like, for instance, here we have the cheek area right there. These little slight little darkened tones that just show where the skin has folded over to form the lip area and such. Well, there is a path for that specific area. So when we go look at the paths, we see that there's a path right there for one cheek and there's a path for the other and a little tiny indent for a little feature she has in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this path, which is for the cheek right there. And let's get a little closer on it. And I'm going to turn it into a selection. So I'm going to make that path a selection right there. Now we turn off the paths. And what's going to happen is I'm going to take my burn tool and I'm going to select a much smaller size. And I'm going to work with my mid-tone areas. I'm going to very lightly go right along this edge and just add a little tone right through there and a little tone right through here. Now I've already delineated where these things are. So now what I could do would be to hide the edges. So I'm going to just hide the selection edges. So there I see the basis of my little cheek area. So now I can go in there and darken even more the areas that I want and soften other areas. Just like that. Now I can get a larger brush. I'm going to bring down the exposure to about a 10%, so it's real light, and just very lightly start to darken that area a little more, just like that. Then I'm going to inverse the selection, at which time I can start to add some of those darker tones on this area here. So now I can deselect it. And there we see that we have the basic cheek. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select that area that I just created, right there, and I'm going to blur it. Give it a little Gaussian blur. And I'll go in there and just soften that up until I have it just the way I want it, about like that. Now I could have gone in there and feathered the edges of the original selection, but that wouldn't give me the exact control that I want, because sometimes I want some areas to be even softer. Like here, I might want that to be a little softer. So I'm going to give this selection a feather and then select this area right up here, blur it even more so that area becomes even softer. And there we see that we have this continuous cheek coming down. Now areas like around the eyes, I'll go in there and do something like this. I'll increase the exposure on this just a little, and I'll make the brush a little smaller, and I'll start to add these tones right into that area there like that. Now we can see how they're starting to form, so I can go in there and take my smudge tool and we'll make it a little bigger, and I'll start to just kind of push these around to get the exact shapes that I want, just like that. Then when I get to a certain point, we see that this is kind of hard here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that area right in there like that and blur that. And in the process of blurring it, as you can see right there, it's going to blend it into the rest of the face, giving me a nice soft transition.